Sure, that's a good way of putting it. A very blunt way of putting it would be like, I was very unprepared for the real world.
Hello and welcome to Did I Do That? Season 5, Guys, Burgers, and Fries. It's a podcast about graphic designers and the locations across the world we make on the way to making something as great as a Five Guys location in Barstow, California would be, because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest. She's an independent art director who's worked with the likes of Tillamook, Mercy Corps, Travel Portland, Nike, and more through her studio Meldell. From designing and art directing a print magazine that highlights interior design in the Pacific Northwest, to art directing a statewide COVID safety campaign, she's done a little of everything. And her ongoing project, Portland Design History, uncovers some of the work that helped lay the creative foundations for Portland's current design culture. It's Melissa Delzio. Hi!
Hi!
It's so good to have you here today.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted to start things out with maybe a little bit of a refresh. You're a listener of the show, so you've been through the most recent episodes. And the last time I sat down in this room with someone, David Chattis, we sussed out that Five Guys, my brand that I've been trying to embed in a marketing capacity, voluntarily over the course of season 5, has a bit of an old school social media strategy. They love Facebook. On their Facebook, they've started an artist residency, which they had given seemingly begrudgingly on the band's part to The Offspring.
No.
Oh, you hadn't heard that?
No. That cannot be true.
The Offspring were selected as the artist in residence at Five Guys. Oh. They recorded one video in which they sort of seemed like they'd maybe been tricked into being there.
Oh no.
That was all shot with
they
phones.
Fired their publicist.
Yeah. I'm not sure they have publicist money anymore. Might be the core issue. Because I am also not sure anyone at Five Guys knows how to get in touch with a publicist to begin with. And probably they just had a, at AOL.com email address for The Offspring on their, GeoCities page.
This is the problem when you peak in the 90s.
Yeah, they're not keeping up with the latest tech. But, like an artist residency, that seems like the perfect place to integrate myself into the Five Guys ecosystem, you would think.
I would think so.
Did not exactly hear anything back from Five Guys since that. And, with the Halloween episode, gave them a little extra time, if anything. Still no dice. But I did want to kind of revisit, like, that place that I learned about that Facebook post. Because I learned a lot of things from the comments on that post specifically, including this like really sick burn that I just had to get in here from Justin Hogel on Facebook. Thank you, Justin Hogel, for this incredible burn. What are the odds? Offspring is what I trade off for a burger at Five Guys. So also like good work moderating your Facebook page, Five Guys. Like really, that one should definitely still be public like a month later. Actually, 2 months is what I'm looking at because this is 8 weeks ago.
Oh boy.
But a lot of the posts were variations on this. Come to Barstow. Add a store in Barstow, please. Barstow wants a Five Guys.
Wow.
Barstow Cal soon, thanks. Need you guys in Barstow, California. So very important question. Have you ever been to Barstow, California?
Just driving by. Maybe stopped at a gas station once.
So maybe Barstow's sort of a classic place to pass through in the middle of the desert.
Yes.
You are a Arizonan.
Yes.
Growing up.
The town I grew up in is not one that you would pass through by happenstance.
No, not necessarily. But Barstow, you definitely would pass through by happenstance because it is the only way to get to California.
100%.
There are not a whole number of other roads that you can choose. Barstow has a lot of features to it. I'm going to sell
not
you
a Five Guys, though.
Not a Five Guys. So, like it's an incredible place that has so many things. It's got an In-N-Out burger, so it does have that.
Yeah.
And then not other things so much.
It doesn't even have a military base, right? Like
no,
the other desert pit stops.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's not got Victorville energy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's sub Victorville. I was going to say it has the world's largest thermometer, but that, of course, is Baker, California.
Oh,
so they don't even have that in
Not
Barstow.
even that.
So, it does give some indication maybe of why Barstow is so thirsty for Five Guys, maybe even thirstier than I am for Five Guys.
Are you worried about alienating your Barstow audience right now?
I do have a huge Barstow audience, but I think it is necessary. I don't want to say that I'm a Barstow truther, but I think it is necessary to get some information out about Barstow, which is maybe why they need a Five Guys, or maybe why Five Guys should be cautious about Barstow.
You gotta really look at that market research.
That In-N-Out is such a magnet. It's like the biggest In-N-Out I've ever seen. It feels like it's a Costco of In-N-Out.
Yeah.
It's twice the size of a regular In-N-Out. It is constantly full. And there's other like fast food joints in that town. And one time we got so fed up waiting for In-N-Out that we did go to one of them. We went to a KFC. This was when I know, it seems like a bad idea to begin with, doesn't it?
I just like the idea that KFC is like the overflow
Yeah.
for In-N-Out.
We got Arby's, we got KFC. There's so many options. KFC in hindsight was not the right choice because the KFC was dead, unlike the In-N-Out. I think I remember my dad telling me that the clerk seemed surprised that anyone was there, which is usually not a good sign when you go and get a food.
But you remember this meal. How many years later?
Well, I do remember it. It may not be for the reasons that the fast food industry would prefer, because we sat in this completely empty KFC and waited for our bucket of chicken, and then it came out, and we all, we tucked into it just as you would, hungry Las Vegans on the road to LA.
Of course.
And I think we each had finished a piece, and then my mom picked up one and took a bite out of it and managed to take the skin off and not much of the chicken, and looked underneath, and under the skin, it was green. The entire exterior of the chicken.
Because of the herbs and spices?
I don't think so, because it's not happened since. So unless they had a special set of 11 herbs and spices, I don't think that KFC was maybe using the freshest ingredients.
Oh, no.
So I guess
not a lot of chickens running around Barstow, I gotta say. There's more chickens in my neighborhood than all of Barstow.
I don't think Barstow could sustain. I'm guessing it probably gets north of 120 in the summer there, just right outside Death Valley. Probably hard to maintain a chicken coop in that kind of temperature.
No.
Your eggs are going to be kind of fried by the time they get inside to be used.
Yeah.
But yeah, it struck me that maybe Five Guys should be cautious. Have you ever had like a similar like fast food disaster on a road trip or something like that?
No, not that I can remember. The funny thing is, when you're in high school, you have friends who work for fast food.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And they would always sneak you treats out the window. I'm like, I just have good associations. Like little treats that friends would just be like, here you go.
So nobody's serving you maybe green chicken that they couldn't sell otherwise.
No, I don't have any memories of that.
That's
I also probably wasn't looking too critically.
You know what? There's always an element of that in that age. The things we look back on that we're like, I think we were talking about this a lot before the recording. The various things from our youth that we look back on and we're like, oh boy, that was probably pretty bad, huh?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Lots of problematic things happening in Arizona in the 90s.
Not like now. Sorry, Arizona listeners. Yeah, it's a weird energy to grow up in a party place. Not the actual store of the party place, although I bet that would be a real weird energy.
Yeah, that would be actually great.
You know what? That would be kind of amazing, though. Like, if you lived... I remember when I was a kid, and this is part of what drew me to this city, the idea that you could live above a business like you would see in a TV show.
I know.
And you go through the restaurant,
so charming.
like, and then you're just upstairs, and you have a nice like rapport with the owner.
This is my secret dream, to have like a little design shop. I don't know what that means. Library, nerdy hangout design place.
Yeah.
Maybe some coffee, maybe some wine. And then upstairs, like the little shopkeep upstairs. I just live there. How lovely is that? The dogs kind of come and go.
But I like that would be amazing.
charming.
And imagine if that place were a party place.
Yes.
And you could just go downstairs and see like, oh, here's 12-foot tall skeleton. Here's Frankenstein mask.
Sound effects whenever you make a joke or whenever if something goes wrong, you know.
Yeah. Plus, you're never gonna run out of cups and plates and napkins.
Yes. Yeah, everyone comes. I mean, that's kind of my vibe anyways. I love hosting parties. And so, yeah, you have a ready-made place, the party place. I love it.
So I guess our suggestion then ultimately is for Five Guys to abandon Barstow, California, and open a location inside the party place as a store within a store.
Now you have burgers and a party. It's a burger party.
And this also like helps with the bad ambiance of the Five Guys restaurant, which is, as I've mentioned,
not enough confetti.
One of the worst things about the Five Guys experience.
Yes.
The fact that it is sad inside.
Fluorescent lights and sacks of potatoes.
Uh-huh. And let's not forget the just great sort of grittiness that the white tile everywhere just brings.
Yeah.
See every stain and every spill.
Oh, no.
Five Guys, you have to pick a different color scheme.
No.
But yeah, so I'm guessing you didn't necessarily come here to talk about integrating the party place into the Five Guys cinematic universe.
No, but I'm glad we landed there, yeah.
But you did, like we mentioned this, like you come from Arizona originally.
Correct.
So like where does your design story kind of start? Like how do you get interested in design like growing up out there?
Right? Yeah.
Because you're from a fairly small town in Arizona,
very small
too.
town. It's pretty devoid of arts and culture, and it was a town that was like invented in the 70s.
Really?
By a chainsaw mogul. So
okay, what? As like a company town where everyone's manufacturing chainsaws, or
he had a lot of money and he wanted a town to design for himself on the Colorado River.
Was it shaped like a chain?
No.
He's not obsessed with chainsaws in sort of a cartoonish way.
Actually, there should be. We should really Havasu should lean into its chainsaw legacy, but really, there's no evidence of it, which makes sense because there's 0 trees.
It would be great if you know how a couple years ago they were trying to get that big gold RoboCop statue to be in Detroit.
Oh,
maybe I don't think they ever found a place for it, but maybe that can go to Lake Havasu City and. He's just holding a chainsaw.
It's just as random as putting the London Bridge there, which is what they did.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They disassembled it brick by brick and rebuilt it in the desert. It's a weird town.
It sounds extremely normal to me, a Las Vegan. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, compared to Las Vegas, this is tame.
But honestly, it's of the same ilk because it's
Correct.
like it's weird billionaires who have nothing but time on their hands
and they see the desert as an opportunity.
Yeah, this is a blank canvas for me to project my ideas onto, no matter how screwy they are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's make Lake Havasu a party destination.
Yeah.
And
forget that it's too hot and E. coli is building up in the channel that they very shallowly dug.
Yeah, they don't. I'm guessing they didn't talk on the MTV Spring Break that was at Lake Havasu about the amount of E. coli just sort of ambiently around everything.
And then all the other diseases that MTV Spring Break brought. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's why the CDC has banned MTV Spring Break. It's a real vector of infection.
The CDC banned.
Yeah. Fauci, give us back MTV Spring
Break. That would
Break.
just make it more popular.
You know, that's unfortunate, but I think it is true.
Yeah.
If there's one thing the past 5 years have taught us. Oh. So tired.
So yeah, I was hungry for art and culture and design, but I didn't know what design was. I think this is a theme that I've heard other guests say. Like nobody in the 90s knew what design was.
No, it was such an alien thing. And I don't, like, I know that our younger students have more of a grasp of it.
Yeah.
But I think like in the 90s, it was such a transitional time where graphic design did not have any core identity of its own, and we're moving between mediums, so there's really like nothing to grasp onto for like popular culture either.
And when you grow up in a small town, like the professions are like, you know, my mom was a teacher.
Yeah.
My dad was a fireman. Like very stereotypical jobs. And so that's all I had to look at. There was no one being a designer.
No, there's no Richard Scarry designer animal.
There is, I'm sure this will resonate with you. There is a subculture of graphic design that is happening, and well, did happen. I don't know if it still is in Havasu. And I kind of want to do like a survey of it.
Oh, really?
It's like the hot rod airbrush.
Oh, sure.
Neon colors.
Yeah.
I don't know how to define it.
Specifically on cars or?
Nope. On shirts.
On shirts.
It's like neon, airbrushy, hot rod vibes. So it's not, I'm saying hot rod as a descriptor, but it's not car related.
Yeah, it's not necessarily I forget who the illustrator is, but the guy who would do the freaky characters that are inside a little hot rod.
I need to do more research to find out like what this style is.
Yeah.
But it was there.
Listeners, if you know
Please.
more, because airbrushing is really having a moment too.
I think it is coming back. Maybe it was a 90s bubble too.
I mean, oftentimes like that kind of style is also on that same 30-year cycle that everything else is on. But like there is such artistry to being able to do that, as I feel like I've learned from the people who are like doing it now. Like it's complicated and hard and
100%.
Like the complexity of some of those shirts back in the day.
Yeah, no, there was like, I don't know, 10 colors on these things. These were complicated.
Like, and it's a shirt that would be sold for $5.
Yeah. And it was definitely promoting like a beer or a brewery or, I don't know, something. But yeah, so that was kind of the culture. But I've had really great art teachers, of course, and they are the ones that I can credit with like opening my eyes. My parents like knew I was a weird art kid and put me in private art lessons.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah, and that was the best thing because I just got to hang out with Carol for an hour, once a month, or I forget what it was. But and just learn about art and do art and learn about techniques and hang out.
Did Carol have a medium that she was like specifically teaching you?
Actually, she had a huge loom on her.
Oh, wow.
Like her whole upstairs was this giant loom. So she was more into fiber arts and weaving, but kind of did everything. But she taught us everything, It was like, and I did oil painting was really what resonated with me and I really liked. But the thing is that I didn't have any real inspiration.
Sure. I mean, not a lot of art museums in Lake Havasu City.
Well, no, not that. Like I wasn't inspired internally. Like I would just copy things.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like
but I think that's common.
I did my own like Monet and Georgia O'Keeffe outputs.
Yeah. You're learning the techniques. You're like trying to like take apart what makes those things work.
Yeah. But like also I just like I had other people in the class with me who were like, listening to their own inner artist and like exploring, like trying to break boundaries. And I was just trying to copy other things. So I realized that art was like not, that I didn't have some component, that something was missing. I was very logical and like needed to solve problems.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is the problem-solving mindset that distinguishes us.
Yes, parameters and logic. And so then it wasn't until I went to college and I was gonna major in fine art and was like looking at my schedule and was like, I don't even want to do this schedule. And talked to like a advisor and was like, I just am not feeling this. Like I've been doing art. I don't feel like I need to learn more about art.
Yeah.
And then that's when they're like, have you thought about graphic design?
So at that point, did you have a better inclination of like what it was that you were stepping into or? Not
really. But it is kind of weird. I think I intuitively knew, but I just didn't have the vocabulary because like I wrote an essay in high school about wanting to be an art director.
Really?
But I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, that's a very like specific
because
poll
I was
too.
Obsessed with magazines.
Oh, no wonder.
And I would read in the masthead that there was something called an art director. And I was like, that seems like what I want to do. But I really didn't know what that meant at all.
Yeah. It's like they must be the person like making the physical magazine.
Yeah. So the program at NAU, because Flagstaff is not really a hub for graphic design, a lot of folks were like, retired there. And so they did work, when it was paced up. And
oh, sure.
So, and they were like working in kind of a very modernist, like structured environment. And so then that's what they taught us. And so that, I don't think I really got I feel like the projects were definitely not as in-depth as what I know happens at this program at PSU.
Maybe not as outcome focused.
Not as real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more on the art side, just in terms of like, this is exploring a technique or a concept.
It was very theoretical. And I took a calligraphy class as like one of my first classes.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't ever connect the curriculum to like typography or building type. So I just didn't know why.
What a missed opportunity.
I didn't know why I was learning it. It was just some like kooky lady who taught us about calligraphy, and I didn't understand the why.
Yeah.
Why it would be important to understand the letter forms as shapes. Like,
which, like, that would be such a cool thing to start people out with, just in terms of, like, I know in our, like, intro to typography classes, we're often encouraging people, like, do some tracings, like, figure out how a letter works by drawing it. You had that, but they didn't think to
I didn't get it.
Link those things together. That's such a shame.
Yeah. And actually, this connects to my Portland Design History project.
Yeah.
Calligraphy is really tied to graphic design, and so many of my mid-century designers that I've researched in Portland went through a calligraphy program at Reed College. Do you know this?
Yeah, the famous calligraphy program that I believe was the only class that Steve Jobs even attended, even though he was not taking it.
Yes.
And that helped to, Steve Jobs didn't have anything really creatively to do with the Mac, but I think he was a good advocate for fonts.
Exactly. He learned all about how typography can imbue meaning and how letters are constructed. And he was taught by a few influential professors at Reed College, and then like brought that to Apple, basically, is the story.
Yeah.
But there's not just Steve Jobs. There's other like pretty prominent Sumner Stone and Chuck Bigelow, other prominent type designers that went through that same program.
Wow.
So there's like a whole ripple effect of designers starting with that calligraphy program at Reed College. But it was also the professor and how he tied it to like Eastern philosophy, and like, it wasn't just the graphic design implications. It was like almost as a meditative practice.
Oh, wow.
So also I did not get that level from my calligraphy class.
That sounds like a very Reed College specific energy that's going to be hard to replicate in Arizona.
No.
Amidst
there were a lot of hippie new age vibes in Flagstaff. I don't know. Don't discount. Very adjacent to Sedona.
I completely forgot about the entire turquoise industrial complex that exists in the desert Southwest.
Oh, I am still fond of turquoise.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I honestly wish I'd bought more of it when I was down there.
Oh, every time I get some piece of jewelry every time I go there.
It's cool. What other thing is that color? Like, here's a special rock that's a neat color, and we don't think it's the coolest thing in the world. Like,
I know. Who determined all the like value of these rocks?
I don't know. Because I feel like a lot of the rocks that are considered valuable are not interesting, really.
We need to reevaluate and reassess.
Why is gold better than fool's gold? They seem awfully similar.
Yeah.
And one of them I'm a fool for liking? Rude. So I don't know. But yeah, so like you are getting some of the basics and honestly kind of the more historical way that this field is practiced in your like early years there.
Sure, that's a good way of putting it. A very blunt way of putting it would be like, I was very unprepared for the real world.
Ooh, that's not ideal.
One funny story, because I was taught this certain way of doing things was like, and I think one of your other guests said this too. I was taught that you had to present your portfolio, everything had to be spray mounted on giant boards.
Can I tell you, that was an energy that was still going as late as 2009, because that was what I was told in school as well.
So that was terrible for everyone, really.
Yeah.
Because my like terrible school projects, which didn't deserve any mounting at all, had to be like dramatically mounted, and it involved centering and measuring and spray mount in this whole process. So it's very hard to update your portfolio.
Yeah.
And awkward to carry it around.
No one
so
wants
I had to
those.
invest in like a giant metal briefcase. Like I'm an architect. And then when I came to Portland, I was like presenting like that. And thank goodness I had someone at Aquent, a talent agency I met with when I first moved here. And she was like, don't do this.
That's a good...
Thank God
that's
for
a good
her.
save.
I would still be doing it to this day. Thank God someone told me not to do that.
But you would be so precise at centering things by this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I never could master it. I could never get the spray mount to actually stick anything.
No, it was terrible.
It's spray mount companies, get it together. Like, how are you the standard for like 40 years and your glue works that bad?
It was a total racket. I think my professors were in the pocket of big spray mount.
Big Super 77.
Yeah.
Here's your $77 and here's your $77.
It was not good.
Just keep the money coming to us at 3M, I think.
That sounds right.
That sounds about right. Some evil conglomerate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's what you have going out of school.
Those were the tools I was given.
Yeah. But like how do you end up in Portland? Like what is the decision to come here?
Well, I wanted to leave Arizona. I was not a fan of Phoenix. Sorry for my Phoenix friends.
But I get it though, because like when you're in a dry place for a long time, wet does sound more appealing.
Yes.
I feel like I've maybe come back around the other way, but still, it's...
Oh, Portland was charming. So I came here on a school trip. This is kind of fun. It was, my little school had a chapter of AIGA, a student chapter, and a woman there organized a trip to Portland because she actually wanted to move here.
Oh.
And so she organized a whole trip, and I was like, called my parents, like, can I, because I was a broke college student. I had 2 side jobs, but one of them paid $6.25 an hour.
Oh, no, that's not going to do much.
So I had no money, but I was like, Mom, I really want to do this field trip to Portland. And I remember I asked for $250 and my parents said yes. And my dad now says it's the best $250 he ever spent because I moved here and then now they moved here.
Hey, wow.
They love it here.
That's a great investment.
They were like, this is the best. So anyways, my parents were very gracious. And so I did this. It was so lovely. We got a tour of Nike and we got a tour of Cole Weber. These are like old school ad agencies. And Second Story.
Oh, sure.
So like good places.
Yeah.
Invited us in and I was
This is a well done
obsessed.
tour.
I was obsessed.
Yeah.
Like Cole Weber had a keg, Second Story was just like more like quiet and academic and like, but still like really cool.
Yeah.
And then Nike was just mind blowing. I do remember because hippie town, Flagstaff is a hippie town. And one of the guys we were with was like total, just everything you're picturing.
100% crunchy. There's no non-crunchy parts to him.
In the Nike like auditorium that was giving a very professional tour, takes an avocado out of his pocket and then opens it like it's a banana and then just starts eating it raw. We were like, oh no.
With the skin still on, or?
No, he peeled it like a banana. I didn't know it was possible either.
This seems
shocked.
It seems like the avocado is sort of built for not this specifically.
Well, I can't remember his name, or else I'd say you should talk to this guy, but I can't remember his name.
I'm glad that he's getting something in his system to counteract the crunchiness, because you got to have a little creamy with the crunch.
It's healthy fats. I'm pro avocado. It was just a strange place and time to consume one whole without any lime or salt or accessories.
Bring the party with you. That's the I think that's the slogan of Arizona.
But Portland, it kind of fit in Portland. We're like, okay,
honestly, you know what? Yeah,
just eating an avocado.
I'm imagining the food co-op near me, just somebody sitting outside eating a whole avocado. I can do it. It's not hard to picture.
No,
yeah.
So yeah, fell in love with Portland. I also did like a West Coast drive and was like, could I live in San Francisco? Could I live here? Just kind of wandering around as a 22-year-old thinking, could I live here? And Portland was just accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know if that's how you felt on your journey here, but it was like.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had a similar school trip in undergrad where we went to San Francisco and I loved it. And then the next year I went on a school trip to New York and I hated it. And that affirmed to me that there's something special about San Francisco that was not true of just any, like it wasn't just any place that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It was definitely a place like that. But even then, I think I knew I don't have that kind of money, and I will not probably ever.
No.
So I think I was looking at Portland. I remembered this recently. I was at the dentist's office when I was maybe 20, which would have been a couple years before I moved here. And I remember the dental hygienist asking me, oh, you don't like Vegas? Where do you want to move? Because that was such a common question. No one wants to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
And I remember saying Portland. And I think she told me, oh, yeah, there's lots of nice old houses there and it's pretty cheap. And it's like, oh, interesting. But I don't know what would have put it in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It wasn't in the dialogue in like 2005.
I knew nothing. I had no information about Portland.
Yeah.
When I came here on the school trip.
Like if there was energy, it was like Seattle and San Francisco and not really anything else.
It rains. It was kind of grungy. Like that was my Arizona impression of the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, which is accurate. I mean,
90s. It was like Nirvana era. So it was just like, I don't know, Nirvana and rain.
Yeah, we've got it all. We've got Nirvana. We've got rain.
I didn't know how beautiful it was.
No one ever talks about that.
Now they do.
Well, yeah. Now it's almost become a problem. But like it's so funny to think, there is a certain serendipity to like taking a chance and being like, this feels right enough, and having it be actually kind of exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like you enjoyed the design places you knew, but like you didn't know it was really the design city that it would become. Like,
I knew that it was a place where I could find creative work.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, I came here without a job, of course, just straight out of school, with like no money and, an air mattress and some camping chairs. And I was going to move here alone. And then a friend was like, oh, you're going to Portland? I'm going to come up for the summer and do an internship.
Oh, sneaky.
And then now she still lives in Oregon. So I got lucky because I think I was very overconfident in moving someplace knowing zero people.
Yeah.
How lonely I would have been. I'm a very extroverted person and I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, it's hard to move without. I think I got lucky that I could move for school, but like you were out of school at that point.
It would have been so lonely.
No, but like in a weird way though, that's the perfect time to take a risk like that, where you're 22, you're able to make friends still and not have to schedule the friend hangouts months in advance.
Yeah, and obviously it was like, pre-internet, well, it wasn't pre-internet, but pre-social media.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, how would I have met people? I don't know.
But you
I did.
You got invested in the community.
Yes.
What do you end up doing when you get up here?
Yeah, so I was lucky that I found a job within like 3 months of arriving, and it was my first job was for basically the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association.
Okay.
So it was basically like a business association.
Yeah.
And as a designer, you would do like all the stuff for their conferences and like little internal newslettery communication stuff. But also like it was kind of weird that our little creative group was independent and we could also get other clients. So like,
oh, that is weird.
I'll show you so I brought some items from that era.
Ooh.
It's really bad.
Big manila folder here.
Okay, so, we got to do work for hotels and restaurants. Let's see if you can guess this brand.
Wow. This looks like a bumper sticker that would be on any Portland car, maybe right next to one of the bumper stickers that is the entire text of the Costco hot dog label.
Yeah.
Cinema Station French Toast Starter, $3.59.
That's a great price.
That is a great price. Monday through Friday, 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. Wow, they open early. That seems almost too early.
I'll give you a hint. This establishment recently just announced.
This is Sherry's.
Yes.
R.I.P. Sherry's.
R.I.P. Sherry's. If only they had hired us.
Yeah.
This was a pitch.
Well, you got the pies on there, which is their famous thing.
Can you believe they didn't go for this?
But it also, like, it's got energy. Mm-hmm. It maybe could use a little bit more energy. You have a drop shadow.
More energy.
Sort of an
One,
up
two,
drop
three.
shadow.
There's 4 bursts on here. What do you mean, more energy?
I mean, the bursts are good. They are diamond shaped. They're all at different angles, which I feel like is a common mistake with that.
Really? I feel like that gives you all the erratic energy that you need to bring to the cinema station.
You've definitely thrown off the probably rigid grid structure that you were taught. Yeah. But it's not for a thing like that. It's not bad. I am so confused, though, that it really is like totally different businesses that are able to come to you and get work, though.
It was really,
because there's no reason Sherry's would be involved with that organization, really.
They're a restaurant.
I guess
restaurant association. It was just like a little creative agency that was kind of specializing in hospitality, I guess you could say.
I see.
But was very much like a business interest group, which I didn't really understand the political ramifications of that when I was 22.
No.
And then just slowly started seeping in and understanding.
I feel like those types of organizations, though, did a great job of covering how sinister they actually are. Until pretty recently.
Well, and even within the organization, like they really separate out like the government affairs people.
Oh,
or, like,
sure.
The suits, and they're in this corner and they don't really talk to the rest of us.
Yeah.
Who are like running events and like,
We're fun and happy and we're not advocating for anything evil.
This is a legal confidential bulletin that I designed.
Wow.
So this is early publication design.
That looks pretty good, honestly, though.
It's pretty good. I like it. It's just the content is evil. Oh, my concept of this was like a briefcase, like dials on the. Everything I did in this era is very conceptual. You could tell I was shortly out of college.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is evoking numbers on a briefcase, like the dials.
Like this is chained with with handcuffs to one of these business guys.
Yeah.
Bringing it into a meeting, and only then.
So some of it is very conceptual, and then there was a creative director who really loved Euro style type. So then everything I did in a certain era has Euro style.
This is so evocative of a specific energy of like 2005, but I'm guessing this is not from 2005.
It's close.
I see Cash and Carry on the back there. R.I.P.
Oh yeah.
R.I.P. to my favorite.
They're gone?
They've been bought out by Chef Store, the store with the most infuriating apostrophe known to humankind. It's all one word, Chef Store. The apostrophes between chef and store. Hate it. You can't use the same S for the possessive and the store. Not acceptable. Go back to basics, Chef Store. But yeah, so that's an interesting 06. You've got a lot of Euro style in there, and this is the kind of first job where you can't really push back against like the boss has a typeface that they want to use.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I wanted to push back at this time. I'll just admit it. I was like, yeah, that seems very aggressively good to me.
But and that was the thing though, is like that is absolutely a thing that was legitimately a vibe in 2006. And
what about the tagline here?
That less so. Everyone is a leader. Just in the bottom has a lot of energy. It's all orange and like italicized Euro styles, super blocky, and then the top you sort of have just an open range of hills with just a guy sitting up there who is presumably a leader, because everyone is a leader, as the tiny text next to him says.
It's bad.
I think it's better than you think it is. But I do think the energy of that era is something that is so isolated from the rest of what the vibe became.
Yeah.
Like, I could totally imagine Total Recall Live opening titles with that energy.
Yes.
For sure. Maybe not everyone is a leader, because clearly it is, what's his name?
Yeah.
He hosted a late night show for like 15 years that no one watched. Carson Daly.
Oh,
Carson Daly.
Well, he was the MTV darling.
He was. And then NPC bought him and put him at 1 a.m. and no one ever heard from him again.
Oh, poor Carson.
Yeah. Say someone free Carson. He might still be doing that show.
I think I did see him recently. I can't remember on what, though.
I wonder if he's finally been given a daytime
He didn't
slot.
go the way of Ryan Seacrest, unfortunately.
No. Ryan Seacrest, new host of Wheel of Fortune of all things.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of exciting.
I don't know what to make of that.
I think it's good.
I feel
go with good.
He's definitely somebody who works a lot. I feel like, though, that's one of those where it's like, this is a retirement job. You're going to be doing this until you're 80.
Yeah,
so
clearly.
Is he going to give up all the other stuff? His radio show?
Do the New Year's Rockin' Eve, right?
I guess so. I mean, this is more work than the host of Wheel of Fortune should have to put in, I guess is what I'm saying.
Don't they tape like 5 at once?
That's the thing.
It's not as much work as you're thinking.
No. But it's a paycheck that, I guess what I'm saying is, rich people who are doing those kinds of jobs, spread it around a little bit, because maybe I could be the next host of Wheel of Fortune.
You would be good.
I've certainly seen people spend Wheels of Fortune at casinos.
Exactly.
And I've said quippy things to them that aren't quite funny.
Oh, and that's dangerous.
That's the job.
You don't want to piss off a gambler.
People can buy a vowel from me, and I think I can keep people calm. I hope. Is
that a conflict of interest with your PSU job? That you're selling vowels?
Yeah, don't get after me, Secretary of State of Oregon, for selling vowels in my spare time. Oh, Jesus. But yeah, so you're doing a wide variety of work for a wide variety of hospitality clients.
Sure.
Maybe not all of it ends up in the portfolio.
It's basic shit. It is nuts and bolts.
Wow, I was not prepared for the energy of the inside of that one from the outside. It looks very quiet, and then it's all the type is orange on that first spread. But yeah, so you're figuring it out though.
Yeah, I'm figuring it out. My biggest mistake from this era, I actually cannot believe I had this.
Wow, I feel like oftentimes the biggest mistake things are things that get tossed.
Yeah, like I would have wanted to forget it.
Yeah.
So this is a very not a big story, but yeah, this was a little invite event, Taste Oregon, whatever it's called, and I designed like the logo and the branding and everything. It's supposed to be like a dinner event, and
seems very fancy.
Somehow I specified the wrong Pantone color.
Oh no!
Do you know how it's supposed to be silver? So that's the correct one. You know how Pantone, when you're in the library in Illustrator, there's like a million books you've never heard of.
Yes, books that are.
Why? What are these?
Yeah, this is such a strange phenomenon. I have to think that these are things, and like sometimes I've definitely asked for things out of one of these books and been told, no, we don't have that.
Yeah, and you're like,
we can't make that ink.
So somehow I was in some library of book and I picked what I don't know. It meant to be metallic, and somehow I specified another color. I actually don't remember how this happened. I was 24, 22, 23.
I wonder if they didn't have the book, and so when the file got sent over to them, they're like, what number does it say?
Yeah, somehow I spec'd the wrong one because I didn't really understand how Pantone worked. And they all got printed with this very bright teal, and it was supposed to be silver. And this is like a buttoned up, very like masculine event, and this is like vibrant teal. Like Miami.
Yeah, which has also been tinted back, so
hard to read.
It is a little bit of a legibility challenge.
Yes.
Those thin strokes on Stephanie in restaurant.
Yeah.
Decide if you're an inn or a restaurant, Stephanie. Just like pick one, pick a lane. That's a little. There's so many. folks, you may not know in the hospitality industry, just the half-life on these businesses is like that of a gnat.
Yeah.
Like the names that I recognize on here are like maybe 2.
Yeah.
And these were probably some of the biggest like restaurateurs in Portland in 2005.
Well, this was actually Oregon. So some of these might be still alive and kicking somewhere else. But yes.
Yeah,
Bronco Billy's Ranch Grill and Saloon.
That was the one that I had the most questions about.
I was going to say, how come you didn't pick on that one?
I need to meet Bronco Billy and his ranch. Is he grilling ranch? Because it's liquid and he shouldn't.
Grill
I'm guessing. We were talking about Yellowstone before this. I'm guessing if we watched Yellowstone, that would be where the Yellowstone characters all hang out.
Yeah,
it's Bronco Billy's Ranch Grill and Saloon.
That's a lot of words. Again, are you a grill or a saloon? Just pick one.
Yeah. It's interesting to like kind of because I feel like it's Applebee's bar and grill. You kind of want like the grill part to be the grill is drawing people in. Saloon is maybe drawing in the wrong crowd to end with that one.
Yeah.
Some rowdy boys who want to smash bottles over each other's head.
I think they did want the rowdy boys.
You think Bronco Billy is one of the rowdy boys?
I think they wanted the rowdy boys. I think that's the point of this.
Boy, also, I love Bronco Billy and the Rowdy Boys like first album, but I feel like it really went downhill after that.
Yeah.
You know? It's a sophomore slump that they never got out of.
Also, they were really early to the ampersand trend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got sort of big ampersand energy in there. There is a time about 5 years from now when every one of these businesses will have an ampersand in it and just 2 nouns that have nothing to do with each other.
Yes.
Socks and hats. What?
Yeah.
And this is a place that serves brunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a very different color than a metallic.
So the printer saved me on this one because these were printed. I used to go to Salem for press checks all the time.
Really?
Yeah. And somehow we didn't go for, or you know what? We went, You know how sometimes you don't see Pantone in the press check or in, whatever. So,
well, it's also always the job that you don't do the proof on.
Something
happens.
And my client was like, we don't want these.
Yeah.
Send reprint it. And so it had to be reprinted. But because the printer took some responsibility for the error, because in my files it was silver, like it looked silver.
Yeah,
but I spec'd it wrong. And so they're like, we should have caught that. It was like there was a mismatch between the design files and your spec.
Yeah.
So why
wouldn't they have? Yeah, that's so weird.
Really, it's my mistake though.
Oh.
Well, I mean, they should have caught it too, of course. It was a mismatch between my spec and what was in the file.
Yeah, there's multiple things that went wrong here.
Yes, but the fact that they took responsibility for it, like... Ugh.
Yeah, that was not the case when a similar thing happened to me. Let's put it that way.
I have found printers to be very generous in this respect.
I will say one thing that I am really loving on the energy of this is that logo of the Oregon Restaurant Association. Oh, yeah, that brush script really is lively.
Well, if you liked it in the logo, wait till you see their publication.
Wow, main ingredient. Oh my God. You know that I am a lover of industry trade magazines.
I heard this. I did hear that.
I have many of them. I have a big pile somewhere in the bookshelf over there.
Well, I did that cover and spread. I didn't do the rest of it, but
pro-industry advocacy. Advocacy means supporting more than just restaurants.
Oh, yeah. This is the business messaging.
One of these cogs, there's literal cogs on this cover that you've designed.
Yes.
One of them is lottery, which is connected to education.
Oh, yeah.
The gears don't work. I'm realizing.
Oh, yeah, probably not. Don't think about it too critically.
The gears do go into each other in a way that they would not turn.
I'm a graphic designer, not a mechanic.
But that said, I mean, the interior of this is looking pretty good.
Yeah, that was a different designer, Tracy, and she's amazing, and I learned a lot from her.
Oh, and I think we've got a later version of the orange.
Is that 06 or is that a different
year? 07.
Oh, yep, we just updated the colors.
Yeah. Well, you've added a metallic too, so
it's so funny that I'm sure I did that, but I really have no memory. Isn't that weird?
But those types of things I feel like just disappear eventually, though. Like It's so funny to think of the number of things that I've done that just totally vanished. This is a pretty well put together magazine. Oh, and you've got a whole editorial spread too.
Yeah, so I got to do that, but Tracy did the rest, yes. I was really lucky that this environment that I worked in, I had some good coworkers. I have to say that my entire creative profession, I never had a good creative director.
That can be a tough thing to find, I feel like.
I'm still searching. If you're out there,
you
want to mentor me.
Tinder for creative directors specifically.
I mean, different people had some values, but overall there was a lot of toxic things, and it's just really sad. But I feel like I learned a lot from coworkers.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of camaraderie with coworkers here because it was a weird place to be creative.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't find a much stranger environment than being in-house and also not in-house at the same time.
Yeah, and everyone around you is like very business association.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had a lot of camaraderie with coworkers and had really good friendships that came out of that. So that was the big takeaway there.
So how do you, I guess, when do you decide to move on?
Oh, man, I wanted to move on after like 2 years when I was like, okay, I know how to send things to print. You know?
Yeah. Like you've gotten your practical education here in a lot of weird ways.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Like the one thing my school did great is I actually learned InDesign in college. And this was a time when Cork was king. And so I came into this job and I actually knew something that the other designers didn't.
Oh,
so
really?
I had one little advantage as a baby designer, and I got to teach them InDesign. But I knew nothing about how to send things to print. I knew nothing about how to put together estimates. And actually, when I got hired at this first job, it was a hybrid admin role. So they had me doing, the grunt work no one else wanted to do design-wise, and write up estimates and like go to the printer and do some of the boring side. But I learned so much about how to run a business.
Oh, yeah.
I was putting together estimates. The other designers didn't. I was talking to the printer and getting print quotes. So I learned so much that I then used as a freelancer.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I have all those skills. So that ended up being really helpful. And that position did shift to a full-time designer. So I really don't have a lot of complaints. It was a good first job, but I really wanted to move on creatively. It's like, okay, I know how to do this. Now I want to stretch my legs. And yeah, I got hired at Staccato. Do you know Staccato?
I don't.
They were an agency that was around since like the early 90s. So they were pretty well established. And I was just so enamored. Like, it was like a little boutique studio. There's 8 of us, and we could take on, I feel like this is still like the perfect size for an agency or design firm, because you're big enough to take on like big clients, but you're not too big to like, there's not a lot of drama. Like, we were very cohesive and we all had a role and everyone was very useful. There wasn't like a lot of dead weight or...
Well, and you're not dealing with the like, there's business guys who have no idea what we do aspect of things.
We could have used a few more business guys.
Well, that's often unfortunately the case for a lot of creative industries.
Yeah.
Not just ours either.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Staccato didn't stay my little perfect boutique agency for long. They decided to grow to like 20 people and invest and take out like a building downtown, like overhaul the whole building. And they really went big right during the recession.
Oh no. I was gonna say the timing on this sounds like it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And it was.
It was.
Yeah. So was that the end then?
That was the end of my agency, my heyday in my agency life when I had a full-time job. And I got laid off. Basically, the Staccato got bought by HMH is what happened.
Oh.
But it got whittled down to 4 employees.
That's kind of growing in the wrong direction. Yeah.
From 20.
Sort of opposite of the goal that they set out for.
Yeah. It was heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah. Well, when you have a team,
getting laid off is the worst. And I loved that job. I loved the team.
Yeah.
And getting laid off is the worst. And I know it wasn't personal, but it still feels personal and is super awkward. And you're like, you literally have to leave now.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm leaving now? Like I was in the middle of something. What do I do with that thing that I was in the middle of? And
Yeah. Do I have time to get the banker's box and put all my things into it?
Yeah.
Like,
and I had walked there because I lived in the Pearl. And so I was like, I needed a ride home all of a sudden. And trying not to cry in front of my coworkers.
Did it happen like in the middle of the day too?
It was, very stereotypical, like 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Oh, sure.
No, you know what it was? It wasn't. It was on a Wednesday because I went to DMOB. I used to run DMOB.
Yeah, you were.
I wasn't on the board of AIGA, but my first volunteer gig with AIGA was running DMOB, which is the monthly networking event for creatives in Portland, in case you don't know.
Like really long running.
Really long running. I was the third DMOB director, whatever you want to call it. And I loved running. It was so much fun. And so I had to like go show up and host an event after just getting laid off. But it couldn't
Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
It couldn't have been more perfect because I remember being really raw about it and being like, well, I'm looking for work, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in a way, too, that's kind of the perfect thing where you're like stepping into an environment where everybody is going to have had some aspect of that experience.
Yeah.
And like they're going to be there to commiserate. You're there to drink also. And that's kind of a nice helper, too.
My creative designer friends who were with me at this agency that they knew I got laid off. I don't know. None of the other designers got laid off at the same time as I did. There's other people. I don't really know how it all went down, but they rallied behind. I had always been like the cheerleader in the agency being like, guys, there's an event happening. You all should come. Like, trying to get everyone out into the community.
Yeah.
Me being like a little community organizer cheerleader. And they would always be like, oh, sure, Melissa. Like, like she's a little too perky and obnoxious with her design community. But they all came to DMOB because they were like, they basically took pity on me and came to DMOB for that.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
It's probably good for them, though, because they were going to need to do some networking of their own quite soon.
Yes. There was one designer that was part of the 4 that made it to HMH, and the rest of us got laid off. But yeah.
Yeah. So you're now like stepping into freelance land. Like, how do you decide that freelance is the game for you? Because that is such a like, it's a very different sort of life than being in-house or being in an agency. Like,
yeah, and I don't know if you felt this growing up, but my parents were government workers. Like they worked the same job their whole life. There was just this ethos. We were chatting about it earlier. Like you get one job and you stay with it, and so it was very jarring to me because I thought that was kind of what would happen to me. So I really it really took me a while to adjust to the idea of freelance. I wasn't like gung-ho about it at first, but it just kind of happened and organically. And I started doing contract work with agencies because I had 5 years under my belt. Like I had a decent enough portfolio to where, and actually doing freelance during a recession is really a good thing because lots of people lay off, but then they actually have stuff come through and they're not ready to hire yet.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a lot of freelance work during those times. So I was able to kind of get on with contracts at various agencies or Lanky, like we were talking about earlier, and kind of just cobbled together that first year of freelance with contract work and then starting my own clients. And I've been doing it ever since 2009.
Wow.
And my first year freelance, I made more than I made at Staccato.
That's an incredible achievement.
I mean, I didn't make a lot at Staccato, but
no. But like, to be able to say right out the gate, like, oh, this is actually working
viable.
And there it like not only viable, but like I'm doing better than I could have been if I had stayed.
And that was the mental adjustment. Like, oh, like I did this for a whole year and it worked.
Yeah.
And I can do it again. And here I am.
Yeah. And you're getting
doing it.
Throughout that, you're getting a lot of variety too. Like you are.
I loved that. Actually, it's really fun to like be contract at various. So like I did Cinco and 10-4 and Nike and all these places. And every place has a different culture, different clients, different creative communities. You meet a lot of people. it's kind of like a summer camp.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, and I'll often tell students, like, you know, when you're first starting out, like, that's not a bad way to get a sense of like what's out there. Just do a couple contracts, and that way you're not locked into maybe a place that is not a good fit for you, or where you're just not compatible with the style of work that they might be doing. You know?
Yeah. And you broaden your portfolio. I mean, I think there's so many benefits. I think it does scare people to not have, you know, the paycheck as more of a regular thing, but.
And there's also the adjustment of how do you actually, because the money that you're getting is not necessarily the money you get to keep either, which is the funny
I'm still
part.
learning that lesson.
I hope to learn it someday.
It's hard. I'm always telling my husband, well, I have, you know, X amount on invoice right now, so we should be paying off that credit card in no time. And then I'm actually doing the math and I'm like, oh, wait, no. Half of that money is going to taxes, health insurance, and retirement. There's
no Social Security being taken out of that check that, you know, somebody's issuing you.
I know.
Yeah, that's the hard part. And a uniquely American problem I recently learned. So cool. Another great cool thing about how things work here. But, you know, you're getting a lot of variety. I do want to circle back, though, to like, because I think in tandem with this, too, you're doing a lot of kind of volunteer stuff with AIGA, and then that also kind of feeds into your freelance practice, too.
I think so. I mean, you know this. It's like getting a job, period, but then also getting freelance jobs. It's really about who you know.
Yeah.
Like, yes, your portfolio matters, but I am so shocked by the amount of clients that really have hardly looked at my portfolio. They got referred to me. They heard good things. They glance at my portfolio for 2 seconds and they're like, yep, let's hire her.
It's the funniest thing.
They asked me, can you do, you know, you do websites? And I'm like, you didn't look at my portfolio at all. You're paying me thousands of dollars. And
I mean, it would be bad if they needed website and you don't do website.
Don't even know my what I do.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I only take photographs of dogs wearing special hats. You should have really looked beyond the cover on my portfolio.
Joe said you were good, so we'll just go with that.
All right. I mean, I think we can turn this website into a dog wearing a special hat. It's going to be a complicated hat, but I got a good fabricator, so I don't know. Maybe we can make it work. Friends, if you want to build a website that is just a dog wearing a special hat and it has all the words for the website on it, hit me up, because I'm looking to redesign Did I Do That .design.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I would love that. Do we want to talk about a Portland story, too? Because I'm assuming that this is kind of also a thing that's starting around this time, too.
Yeah. So our Portland story is a project that I put together starting in 2008. And basically I was just like, I think Portland is the coolest place ever. And nobody knows about Portland.
Oh, no.
This is pre-Portlandia.
Yeah.
And
pre-New York Times article every single weekend for 12 straight years. Thank you again, New York Times.
Yes. So this was before that, hopefully not spurred by my book. We could come to find out that my book spurred everything.
Yeah, well, you did send one directly to Carrie Brownstein.
Now you do regret that. I thought Portland was like quirky and weird in this way that was unique and that wasn't being advertised at the time. And so I just put out an open call for stories about Portland. And the premise was every story gets a page in the book. You have to pick one thing. You can't just list things. Pick one thing, write about it, one aspect of Portland that you love. And then people wrote about normal things I thought they would write about, and then things I never would have ever imagined they would write about.
What's your most unexpected story that came out of this?
There's so many fun ones. There's people that wrote little stories about a little love story.
Oh.
There's a woman who is in a wheelchair and talks about navigating the streets of Portland in a wheelchair and the realities of that. Yeah,
I would dare say most of the street corners are not ADA accessible. Yeah. And we're not until still aren't, but really we're not even attempted to be until recently, original 1905 street corners.
100%. So it was so fun. And then each page has a different story and a different graphic designer.
Yeah, I was going to say there is such visual variety in this too.
Okay, now look at volume 2. So my mistake with volume 1 is that I was very young and I did not know how to be a creative director at all. I didn't even know that I had to be an art director or creative director. I just thought everyone's a designer, so they're going to do a great job.
Yeah.
No problems.
No need to supervise or check in or anything like that.
So it's a mixed bag because you get some pages that I think are gorgeous and like very well designed, beautiful, and then others that are like,
maybe certain things are not press ready about them.
Yeah. And you know, it's eclectic. It's fine. It was designed. It's supposed to be a little eclectic. So I also did not, when I was asking for story submissions, I did not account for gender, race, or anything. I was not strategic in any way, which I thought was a good thing because I was like, oh, I'm just responding, you know, to the stories that resonate. But I should have done a better job at like deliberately going out to underrepresented communities.
Yeah.
And being like, hey, you all should submit a story and making sure that my book was like reflective of a broader scope of Portland, not just like the quirky like white creative nerds that I was friends with.
Yeah. Well, that's something that it took the culture a long time to catch up with too. And it's easy, I think, when you're starting out on a project like this to not be conscious of it until like you're in it and you're starting to realize, oh, there's a similar energy to all of these. Why is that happening?
Yeah, and I was called in by actually a friend who was like engaged in some community work in the Black community, and he was like, well, have you reached out to you know, the Scanner and other like independent like in the Black media universe of Portland? And I was like, no, I didn't reach out to any of those people.
Yeah.
And so then for volume 2, I did a much better job of like broadening my outreach. And
I think there's also, I mean, like, I will say just visually too, going through this, there is a lot more consistency.
So then I art directed the second one.
Yeah. I feel like there's kind of a similar vibe, and there's also ideas that I feel like were definitely pushed from maybe where they would have started.
So I did volume 1. I published it. It was successful, even though it is crazy. I mean, you know, it's a fun concept for a book, and it was pretty successful. Like I got it in New Seasons and Pals, and like I would on the weekends. I called my husband my number one salesman. I would say my husband and I, but it was mostly him. I'd be like, New Seasons needs 100 more or whatever, and so he would run all the books around town.
Wow.
So it was really fun. We kind of did the project together a little bit on that aspect of it. And so then for volume 2, I had enough energy from volume 1, and I was like, I want to do it better. I want to like fix my mistakes. Oh, also, this is one of my
loving
favorites.
These autographs pages too.
I had these events around town. So I wanted it, my original concept, I called this Portland's Yearbook. Because as a graphic designer, one of your first onboarding things is the yearbook club, right?
Absolutely.
That's
such
a very
common
common experience. Who knew? Like they should put graphic design, we should put PSU graphic materials in like yearbook classes all around, because that is the gateway.
I would love it if that could feed back into we're just slowly like tendrils of us are getting out into
exactly
into high school yearbook classes.
Yes.
Like a virus gets installed on a computer and
yes.
Like, oh, my homepage went from yahoo.com to psu.gd. Weird. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I wanted this to have a yearbook vibe. And so I had the autographs, those are people at events just writing to Portland as if it was a character that you met in school.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Wow, Portland, this year's really blown by, hasn't it? I'm sorry I haven't kept in better touch, but I want you to know that I think about you all the time. And when we see each other in passing, I often think, hey, we should get coffee. Anyhow, I really wanted to thank you for being my daughter Lilia's hometown, and no drive-through liquor and ammo stores. Anyhow, love you, PDX. Yeah, no drive-through liquor or ammo stores as far as I'm aware, even to this day.
That is definitely something I grew up with.
So these are then pre-printed in here. This is not...
Yeah, so I got these from events that I would host, and then I printed them and put them in. Yeah, this one is PDX, baby. I'm so glad I got to know you. As soon as you learn to stop hanging out with hipsters while drinking PBR tall boys, I'm sure we'll be BFFs.
Oh, bad news.
I love how
bad news. That's only getting worse.
I love how everyone really embraced like the high school like vibe in those messages.
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be some keep in touches in here.
Yeah.
What is it? I never had hags in my yearbooks. That is, I feel like, an energy that came after us.
What is hags?
Have a great summer.
Oh,
I guess people who are like 5 years younger than us would write hags in each other's yearbooks, and it's just like,
nah.
I feel like that word has other connotations that maybe I don't want to bring in.
No, that's not good.
Also, this is Beetlejuice's voice here. I'm here now too.
I had never seen Beetlejuice until like 3 weeks ago.
What, really?
Yes.
The original one?
No, I never saw it.
It's pretty good, but it's
Until
also
3 weeks
deeply weird.
Yeah.
In ways that are maybe not such a good vibe.
Well, we decided to go see, my husband and I decided to go see like the new one, and I was promised that Gina Davis was in it.
In the new one?
Yes.
Oh, no.
That's the only reason I got there.
Is she?
No, she's not.
How did you like it? Was it good?
Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
It's not really my thing, but it's not the worst.
It's a little past its moment, I feel like.
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like, if you're watching that in like 1987 or whenever it came out, I'm sure it would have blown your mind. Yeah.
I know. It's just
I've heard this on like movie people discussing like the Tim Burton aesthetic as being like, it's something that is so exciting when there is not technology to do it. Mm-hmm. And when that's kind of what makes Tim Burton go crazy too, is like, now I have computers and I don't have to worry about weird puppets and stuff. And it's like, no, the weird puppets are what's interesting, but also you can't recapture that because it's so easy now. I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
I'm mostly not a like sci-fi, science fiction, anything, fantasy, even like superhero action. I'm not really into any of that.
Modern cinema is not going to have a lot to offer you, unfortunately. There's no stories about adults.
I know.
They must be punching each other in front of a blue energy portal.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, you don't want to listen to my movie critiques. They're too much action, not enough story.
This movie didn't. I don't think I've told this story on the show, but I will say a lot of movies are too much action for me generally. Right before the pandemic, like maybe a week before the pandemic, we went to see the movie that had Adam Sandler playing a guy who is he's selling a necklace that is like a gold version of a Furby. Uncut gems.
Yeah.
And the way that movie is shot immediately gave me a nosebleed.
Oh God, yeah. No, way too stressful.
Way too stressful.
I don't like consuming things that stress me out.
No. I feel like maybe those movie makers should have just looked at the world that we're in and said like, I don't know if we need more than this.
No.
Let's take it back down.
Yeah.
Let's chill it out.
Yeah.
I forget how we got
I don't know.
tangent.
We got lost.
We're very far afield of Portland Story. So like you make these are self-published too.
I self-published these. Yeah, this was an era which we're still in where you can just submit stuff to a printer. Mine was Lightning Source was the one I used, but yeah.
Yeah, and they make these beautiful hardcover books.
Yeah.
And you do two of them.
Expensive to produce.
Oh, I bet.
At this point, I was on the board of AIGA, and I was on the board with Dave Selden, who started the 33 series.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? The little like 33 whiskeys, 33 beers.
Oh, but I have seen those.
He was starting this concept. He was a creative director, and he was starting this concept, and he was producing all these little books. And I was working on this one very hard, arduous, time-consuming, like all of these 77 authors and 77 designers that I was coordinating and working with to produce.
Yeah.
And then print it in full color. And so we were both working on these projects at the same time. They're like our little creative side projects. And his like went on to be a big money maker, and like, you know, he's taking over Pals now and like doesn't have to work anymore. And I'm like, oh,
well,
not exactly something that wasn't exactly a project that it was motivated by money to produce. Let's just say.
No, I mean, it's good to have like a passion project like that though, and you got to make 2 of them, which is still like really remarkable, and they're beautiful objects.
They are very fun objects. And I feel like we're waiting for a resurgence.
Yeah. Well, they're an interesting snapshot of that time too, which like I think that's maybe a thing that was undercaptured at that moment of like, well, what was this transitional moment between, you know, Portland being the small town to Portland being the uncomfortable sized city that's too big in some ways and too small in other ways, and a little awkward.
I quit doing this in the middle of the Portlandia, whatever we want to call it. The wake of Portlandia.
So that Portlandia was just like a shutdown energy for this project.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because it felt very redundant or derivative all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And like a character of itself or something.
Yeah, I think once you have people who's I don't want to call them out, people who specifically live in Brooklyn and Seattle starting to make fun of the city for these things, it does start to, you know, cast an energy on them that is not ideal.
Yeah.
Fred Armisen did own a condo in the Pearl for a hot minute, but I think it was midway through that show.
Well, it was funny. That's why I got interviewed on OPB, was like they were doing a Portlandia story, and they had Fred Armisen and then me representing Portland.
Wow.
Except we weren't in the same room. They interviewed us separately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
Probably ISDNing Fred in from the East
Coast. But they're like,
Coast.
now for a local perspective.
A local perspective on the city that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so I got
fascinating.
To represent Portland.
That's so funny.
5 minutes.
So like I think that's an interesting like book to close too on that time, like not just in your practice, but in, you know, in the vibe of the city and how it shifts right there. And I think it's also maybe an interesting like transition point to like kind of the work that you have been doing a lot of in your free time these days, like actually researching and documenting the untold stories of like the vibe shift that happened before that vibe shift, the big one that helped to make the creative culture in Portland that we still have. Yeah,
the projects really do play off each other nicely. And I even like kind of had it nested under our Portland story for a while. I just started calling it my Portland Design History Project. And actually it came from this. There's a story in here about Homer Groening, who is Matt Groening's dad. And so there is crossover, and the seeds of Portland design history are in this book, because there are a lot of stories about history in this book. So I started this Portland Design History Project, and it's 10 years in, but it's still just starting.
Yeah.
So it's one of those projects. I'm sure you.
Well, there's a lot to it. I mean, ultimately.
My God. I mean, I didn't know at first how much there was, and then you just start pulling these threads, and then all these worlds open up.
Yeah.
And all these people and all this work that's just in people's basements, and family members are like, yeah, my dad was a graphic designer for 30 years, and this is all of his work. This is his whole life, and what do we do with it? Yeah,
or like these stories that you're like, oh, I didn't really ever make that connection. Like I have a collection of PSU yearbooks, weirdly, from the 60s and 70s. Over there, and I've always brought them out as examples for people, but had never really looked at like the credits pages. They're beautiful objects, and they're like, I mean, just so incredibly dynamic and weird. And like, there's a photo of a PSU, or a spread of a PSU president, where they have chosen to show him as a portrait through 30 different close-ups of different aspects of his face, all arranged in this weird kind of staccato like energy.
Wild.
It's so strange, and I've never seen anything else like it. And it's like, there's no way that you could get away with doing this in any other era. And like, I had for the longest time wondered, like, who did these things without looking at it. And then one day I looked, and like one of the like art directors on it is Bill Plimpton, the animator. Yeah. I'm like, I didn't know he went here. I didn't know he was laying out one of these things.
That's crazy. Ooh,
but
we should connect.
I would love to talk to him at some point.
Me too. I've tried reaching out. But I want to put an entry about him on, because I feel like not enough people know about him either.
Yeah.
The animation, I have like 4 themes that I'm working on. So there's like the mid-century modernist, which is where I started. And then now I'm in like the underground press, which I just did a big event on that last week.
Yes.
And like the 70s and 80s and 60s publications.
Like a huge important energy for like the sort of counterculture vibe of this city that becomes the 90s energy that like kind of brings Portland to the fore.
Yeah. And it's so weird how these spheres are different, like the mid-century modernists and the counterculture movement, the artists and designers, they're so separate. Like there's no crossover.
They don't like each other.
I don't know that they don't like each other, actually. Yeah. I don't know, but there just wasn't crossover.
Yeah.
With the exception maybe of Clinton Street Quarterly, which was like leaning more into artists and leaning more into the 80s. But yeah, so those are 2. And then those are the 2 I've done the most work on, the 2 themes. And then the type design in Portland, I think, is huge. And I have all the threads hanging on that I need to pull and investigate.
Yeah.
Starting with Reed College as kind of the root of that. But I think PSU like is definitely in future fonts, and like there's so many things that are happening now that are an evolution of that. Then animation is the 4th one, and that's where there's like there's other people telling that story, so it's not as like top of my list, but there's so much overlap with design.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially in those early days. What is always great about these early, like the mid-century modernists, is like they did everything. They were filmmakers. Yeah. They did their own photography. They were writers. Like they all did everything.
No, I in researching this school a while back, like I was looking at biographies of like some of the early professors here, and none of them had clear disciplines at all. They're like, oh, I'm a professor of art, but I also do graphic design and a little architecture on the side. And it's like, how does this work?
Yeah.
What are the rules for this?
Yeah.
Like
maybe without the internet, people just decided to learn new occupations.
I guess so. You could just people had so much spare time that they're just learning how to build buildings. Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really wild, and I think there is such an energy that comes out of being able to be that cross-disciplinary too.
Yeah.
Like you are not tied into. I know how to wireframe a website, and that's all I can do. And if the industry ever changes, I don't know what I'm going to do, but don't worry about it. Like
I think it is really freeing. And like we just at this event, I talked to Jim Blashfield, who is one of the subjects I've interviewed, and he went on to be like a back to MTV. He directed all these music videos and made music videos for these huge names, Talking Heads, Michael Jackson. He was like a director and an animator. But he also did psychedelic posters in San Francisco. So how do you and then he did publication design in Portland. Like he just lived like 3 different lives.
Yeah. But it's all at the same time too.
In that. Maybe there's I don't know, maybe there's more freedom in having those disciplines kind of influence your work. I don't know.
Well, maybe and it's I do wonder too about, it's so easy for things to sprawl out too professionally because things bleed into each other. And it's like, maybe if the things are so different, you can really put a little box around them and be like, I'm just working on architecture today, or I'm just making a sculpture that's a big, weird, stretched out face.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so funny to think, but like, yeah, you could be a jack of all trades in a way that just is not possible anymore.
Yeah, now we definitely would frown upon it when a student is like, well, I really like this.
Yeah.
And, a teacher might be like, well, let's try to hone in on something.
Yeah, but then I'm also realizing I'm one to talk with my audio-based practice in graphic design.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Maybe I'm also one of these weirdos.
Yeah.
Hooray!
Yeah, That's all of us, I guess.
Although I'm definitely
I'm
less
pretending
innovative.
to be a historian.
But I think you're doing, and I've talked to like students about this in like, I think in a weird way, designer is really close to reporter in a way more than almost any other profession is.
Yeah.
Where you are forced to go in and try to understand a profession that is separate from yours and bring your knowledge to that. And I think that's part of how I like rationalize doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also like really true of like trying to do like actual reporting, which is like what that project is. Like,
I love that process. I think I think I could be a journalist in another life, but it does feel like that.
yeah.
And you're reporting it back. So there's that aspect of it too, where it's not just I'm internalizing it, but then I'm packaging it for other people to consume it.
You're giving voice to the things that you learn. And that's like, that is such hard work and something that is true whether you're like working in-house on a magazine about, what was it called? Like the main ingredient?
Yes.
Like what a bold pronouncement. This is the main ingredient. Just put it in your soup and it'll magically turn into something.
Give it a little stir. Flip it every now and then.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta flip it. You don't want this to burn. Oh, the smell. You'll never get it out. Worse than popcorn.
Take it from me.
I have a friend who is from Detroit and was told that the two foods that people in Detroit love more than anything else are hot dogs and popcorn. And the popcorn smell is so pronounced that they went to a club recently and the performer was like, "It smells a lot like popcorn in here." I don't think a movie theater even has that level of problem.
That is news to me. I don't know.
And that's some intense popcorn love, Detroit. So like, but that's the work that you're currently kind of engaged in, is like trying to hunt down these stories and then share them out. I know you've like put out a publication with some students here, originals,
yes,
which you can still find online, right?
I have a PDF you can find on available for download.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful document, like covering some of like the, you know, kind of overarching themes of design through that era.
I got to do a Portland design history class at PSU and got students. It was an experimental class for sure. And actually I used the journalistic example. I was like, this is a newsroom.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you all assignments. They're research projects. And I have no idea how your assignment is going to go. You may have wild success and you may fail in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to start over. And like, that's hard for students who want more structure.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, there is a certain amount of uncertainty that you have to have in approaching a project like that. I mean,
also you have to make phone calls.
Yeah.
It's just very difficult for all of us. I'm including myself.
That's fair. I mean, you don't know when you're going to hit a phone tree these days, and that really is cursed. Or a robot that asks you, "Hello, who am I speaking to today?"
Ugh,
Would you like to give money to me? I'm a political campaign. Please.
Report spam.
Please don't report spam. I know you pressed the button. Please don't report me.
Oh no, it's coming after me.
I know where you live.
Oh no, this is taking a turn.
I am going to send you a ham.
Wow, this seems like a very smart technology, and yet they did not make the voice less robot-y.
No, we are incapable of it.
Didn't invest.
The resources were spent on my ham sales techniques. Must sell
Which are
hams.
Very aggressive.
Very, very aggressive, but good for apologies, which are necessary.
Oh, sensitive side.
Press 1 to rescind ham. Ham has been rescinded. Thank you for enjoying my company. Goodbye.
So you see why students are terrified.
Don't rescind the ham, everybody. The robot needs it. The robot loves the ham.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that is a beautiful project that you are working on, and you just did an event at PNCA, like kind of going through it.
Yeah, really special.
Yeah.
The event was about 4 publications, and I want to do deep. I have all the scans done. I have all the interviews done. All the pieces are there. I need to write up stories and post it on to the public.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just sitting on a lot of content that I've done, and it's not in the world yet. It's just waiting for me to...
You're working on it.
I know. I need a team, and I need to figure out how to like make this my job.
If people like do want to volunteer to help, would you be...
Email me. I would love social media help.
Yeah.
I need someone to like have access to the Dropbox, find cool things that I'm stowing away, like little nuts or acorns, not nuts, whatever squirrels bury.
Squirrels just hiding cashews.
Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know what squirrels do, but find the little acorns that I've been burying and like bring them to life.
Yeah.
So I need help with that.
I think
So
that
if there's any squirrels out there.
Yeah, if there are any squirrels listening to this podcast,
they haven't been scared away by the rats.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many rats. They fight for the cashews is the thing. I should probably get the cashews off the floor now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that could be. Why.
But yeah, if there's any squirrels out there listening who want to like kind of help out and like really like help disseminate like the research that you've collected out to the public so that like, you know, this project can get even broader reach.
It's a really ironic thing, like that what I do for other people, it's very difficult to do for myself. It's like, no,
that's always the case though.
I just want to do the work of like researching and interviewing and finding this stuff, and I want someone else to project it.
But I think it's so true though that you could really only do one part of it before you like really the other parts feel just like a slog, even if they're the thing that are energetic. I'm maybe thinking of my own social media strategy as part of this. It's really hard.
Is it? I don't know if it's just like you said, or if it's a middle-aged thing. Or it seems hard.
Well, it's constantly changing, which is not helping anybody.
No.
Who knows if your post will ever be seen?
No, I feel like there's an energy that other people bring to social media that I am lacking. So
we need to become TikTokers and do the thing where we're putting text on top of us and then pointing at it.
Yeah.
So we're just pointing at that, and maybe doing kind of a funny dance as we're doing the pointing. The pointing energy, I feel like I would love to see those videos without the text, just to see like all the multiple takes of people like just pointing up and being like, shit, I don't have enough headroom there. I got to point like lower, like close to my eye level. And there we go. That's the right amount of text space.
Yeah. See, watching people do Instagram in real life is awkward. And it feels awkward too. If I ever do it in real life, like very rarely will I be an influencer in real life, but it's awkward for everyone.
I mean, there's nothing more awkward than trying to communicate with people who aren't there, and that's true. Yes. That's true with people having phone conversations on the bus, and that's true with people doing Instagram on the bus.
Yeah.
Don't do any of these things on the bus. Is what I've learned.
Although sometimes it's fun to eavesdrop.
It depends on the conversation, is what I would say.
Yeah.
I definitely have had some ones where I'm like, I wish I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
I don't think the entire bus full of people desperate to get home in this rainstorm need to have the energy that is being put out onto this poor phone call.
I love like catching a side eye with other people who are also eavesdropping and judging. And you catch the side eye, we're like, did you hear that? All right. That's the best.
Wow, there's a lot of money being discussed here on the bus. Maybe.
I remember one time my now husband, I don't think we were married then. We were definitely drunk after like a gala event, taking the bus home as you do after a gala.
Yes. You go from glamour to the opposite of glamour.
Because I only was at the gala because I do volunteer work, not because I paid to be there.
Hey, I've only been to galas as crew, so
exactly. So taking the bus home, and we were drunk fighting about something, probably at a volume that we thought was between us, But that was
not at all
confined to us. And it was like a, drunk bus, the number 4 going home.
Yeah.
When we lived off Mississippi Street. And
there's a lot of people on that bus, too.
There's a lot of people on that bus. And somebody just came over to us and handed us both gum.
Wow.
As like a peacemaker. Like,
my God.
You guys are drunk fighting right now. Here's some gum.
That is such a subtle but incredibly powerful move.
Incredible. That person should have gotten some sort of award for peacemaking.
I don't know who's running for mayor because it seems like it's 80 people from my ballot. But if they're running, I hope I voted for them.
Oh, man. That person was an angel.
Yeah, they have some sort of powerful quality in empathy to be able to be like, this is the thing that will be esoteric enough to stop this right now.
Well, and it was we were fighting about like what time we left the gala. Like he wanted to stay and I was like, we have to go. And, it wasn't substantive.
Something that had already been decided.
Yeah, it was just nonsense.
Can't relitigate the past,
so
ultimately.
I think this person saw, you know what, you guys, you're better than this.
Yeah. I'm going to free you of this moment.
This isn't your best moment.
Through fruit stripe gum, the gum that loses flavor within a moment of it touching the moisture of your mouth.
Yeah.
But look at that zebra. He's so happy.
If anyone out there has a gum client, that could be a good idea. Just a free idea for you. Just gum as a diffusing mechanism.
Honestly, just to timestamp this, we're doing this right before the election. Maybe we all just need to take a stick of gum on Tuesday and hopefully ourselves down.
I forget which one it was that had like the minty burst, but it like went to your sinuses.
Is it 5? It's 5, I think. Where it's like an extreme gum.
Yeah.
This is a powerful gum.
Yeah. You can't get into a deep political debate while your sinuses are being infused by minty freshness.
You've gotten just a full-on explosion of mentholyptus in your sinus passage.
Yeah.
Like you cannot process any language after that for like 10 minutes. You fully need to take a break. I feel like we've run out of air in a weird way in this room, and we're just truly like,
yeah, we need to wrap it.
Carbon monoxide poison.
Yeah, we're probably delusional.
I love it though. Thank you so much for being here, Melissa. Thank you for
hosting me. It was so fun.
If people want to find more about you, more about the project, like where do they go to do that?
Please follow me on Instagram. It's my name, Melissa Delzio, or Portland Design History is my project that you should follow. And then Meldel PDX is my business side. So I have 3 personas.
Yeah. And you can find like your portfolio, but also your annual reports that you put out.
Oh, yeah. My annual reports on meldel.com is my portfolio website. Also in the writing tab I produce an annual report, and it's all about being a freelancer and all the tools and the pitfalls and the joys of being a freelancer in a very honest and transparent way. So,
which is really like, if you are thinking of like exploring that life at all, which, I know a lot of people are kind of in the boat that you were in, like leaving Staccato and might be contemplating that. Like, I think that's a really great, honest way to like kind of see, well, what is this life actually like? Yeah. Because there's not a lot of people doing that.
I worry that I go into so much detail that I scare people into trying freelance because it is a lot. But yeah, if you have the right temperament for it and are comfortable working from home with no coworker except for whatever pets you have lying around, it is a really fun career option, and I've been very lucky to be doing it for so long.
It sounds great to me, honestly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, hey, listeners, thank you for listening to this. Press 1 to thank Sean for the listen. Beep. Oh, thank you. If you got a moment, please rate, review, and subscribe to this show wherever you heard it. Ratings and reviews in particular are a big help to the show. And it's been a hot minute since we got any reviews, so I would love to have some, because that really does help promote the show in the algorithms. But you know what also helps? Just sharing it with a friend. Just like take your friend aside and say like give them a stick of gum, and written on the stick of gum is, "Did I do that? .design." And not only will they be puzzled by the gum, they will be so confused that is a website because it ends in .design that they'll be like, okay, well, sure, I guess.
That's not real.
No, that can't be right. So please spread the good word and spread the gum, as they always say. If there's somewhere else that you would rather hear the show or follow us on social media, you can go to dididothat.design to do that. And you can follow us on Instagram for some good images that go along with each and every episode as well. This has been Did I Do That? I am Sean Schumacher. And as we always say, at the close of every episode.
Whoopsie daisy.
You really had that chambered. I love it. Whoopsie daisy it is. Okay, bye.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, breathing exercise.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's me, the Mucinex man. I forgot to take my Mucinex today. There's a horror show in there.
Oh, no. You know that's addictive, right?
Mucinex?
Well, maybe it's Afrin.
Oh, I didn't know either of them were.
Yeah, you can get addicted to nose spray.
What does the addiction do for you?
I can't speak for personal experience.
My sinus passages are so clear.
I just get addicted to breathing.
Well, maybe it's like the limitless pill, where suddenly you can use more than 10% of your brain, and you're just like, the cops are chasing you, but you're hacking the cops
You're hopped
in
up
your
on
car
oxygen.
Yeah. I can breathe so well.
Oh my goodness.
Is that what oxygen bars were for? R.I.P. the magazines at Riches. Oh.
I know.
What a heartbreak. Now it's just, who wants to go to that shop? Now there's just stinky cigars all the time. I don't, who's that for?
I don't know.
I guess why.
People that have babies?
I guess.
Weddings?
Maybe.
Just, there's still a lot of drunk uncles kicking around.
It took me a minute to get to where you were with
the
people who have babies, the big cigar that the dad has in the lobby of the hospital.
I went to
I was imagining just a bunch of like moms like cradling their babies in the big comfy chairs inside of Riches with just like huge clouds of smoke around them. Basically the way that the world was 35 years ago.
Exactly. I don't know if that's still a thing. That's what I associate it with.
I mean, if
celebratory smoke among men.
If it was going to be anywhere, it was going to be in Vegas. So I fully believe that there had to be a smoking lobby, if there isn't still one, in a Las Vegas hospital.
Absolutely.